It's the Roman circus. What does the emperor do when the people become restive, and when the people are asking questions, and when the people don't like the policies of the emperor? He sends them to the circus. He creates a circus. He builds a giant coliseum. And he begins to throw the Christians to the lions. And he has great chariot races and football games and basketball games, all to keep the idiots preoccupied with things that don't mean anything in the scheme of the entire world, so that they don't have the time to learn what the truth is, so they don't ever get smart enough to learn how they're being manipulated, so they don't ever question the emperor. That's why they pay a player on a football team or a baseball team $1 million or $2 million or $3 million a year. It is the Roman circus.
Well, I really do hope that you guys are enjoying your meaningless Sunday night sports balls. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Okudowski here of WeAreChange.org. Absolutely so many crazy things happening in the world right now that we're going to be breaking down this Sunday. A shocking statement by, of course, the World Economic Forum and their partnership that, of course, is helping enrich some of the most sinister people in the world as they literally restart projects that are connected to one of the biggest events in our modern history. Not a joke. If that wasn't crazy enough, we of course have more salacious crazy news coming from Russia and Ukraine with another jaw-dropping, eye-opening statement by the Secretary of State. We're going to be getting into that, plus a lot more, all here on this independent media outlet. And the clip that you saw in the beginning of this broadcast was most likely filmed sometimes in the 90s by William Cooper. Before any alternative independent media questioning our current paradigms, there was William Cooper that paved the way for many of us when it came to thinking outside of the box and breaking the conditioning that is pushed on by, of course, the corporate media. He, of course, also was a former U.S. Navy intel agent who, of course, wrote fascinating books that are definitely worth revisiting, and extra points if you recognized him from the beginning of this video. Now, as the general public is pacified with sports balls, there, of course, is a lot of crazy things happening in this world, bringing upon great suffering to the masses, especially when it comes to the larger financial ramifications that are absolutely obliterating the American middle blue-collar class. This as, of course, massive government intervention, money printing, taxes, regulations, rules, have absolutely destroyed the modern man's ability to be able to make a comfortable living for himself, while, of course, enriching some of the most powerful multinational billionaire corporations out there. As, of course, the Federal Reserve literally printed money out of thin air, which devalued the dollar, and gave it to some of the most powerful entities on Wall Street. They did this with secret bailouts that no one is even talking about. This as the last 3 years, small mom-and-pop businesses were shut down by governments for, of course, science. Science that the World Economic Forum is literally bragging that they control. Yes, you're hearing this correctly. The World Economic Forum literally bragged about how they partnered with Alphabet and Google to determine what people could see, what they could think about, to the point where the Undersecretary for Global Communications for the United Nations, Melissa Fleming, went on record during the World Economic Forum meeting and declared, quote, "We own the science." It's not a joke. Here's her words out of her own mouth.
So we're becoming much more proactive. We own the science, and we think that the world, should know it, and the platforms themselves also do. But again, it's a huge challenge that I think all sectors of society need to be very active in.
Yeah, and they certainly do own the science, and they have absolutely abused that responsibility within the last few years, especially with what we've seen with the health emergency that, of course, was used to enrich some of the most richest people in this world, including the lackeys of a lot of these policies, as we have seen Dr. Fauci's net worth increase to $12.6 million. This is actually pennies comparatively to what his policies have done, transferring the wealth from the poorest people in the world and given it to the richest ones with, of course, his lockdown mandate and restriction policies that, of course, hindered the average person while of course benefiting corporations like Walmart and Amazon. The Silicon Tech Valley was also heavily enriched as of course more people became dependent on them when they were locked inside of their own homes, all as we're finding out that within the last 3 years the science was either made up or manipulated to work for the personal benefit of the people controlling the science. And this is why this admission by the UN Secretary during this World Economic Forum is so telling and so important to understand in the backdrop of how humanity was just screwed over within the last 3 years with policies that didn't help anyone, to the point where there's even mainline corporate news articles out there highlighting how a lot of the policies were counterintuitive and actually led to more suffering rather than, of course, prevent any of it. Now, it's also important to note, what are these lackeys of the World Economic Forum at the United Nations going to be doing with them having the godlike ability to control science, which, by the way, shouldn't be controlled. You destroy and bastardize the definition of science by saying you control it. Science is supposed to be about experiments, about discovery, about testing different hypotheses out there. It can't be owned, it can't be controlled unless, of course, you're doing something really nasty and sinister and, of course, denying the actual practice of science, which of course many scholars have argued was done within the last 3 years. And again, it's just mind-boggling because a couple decades ago, the science was that cigarettes was good for you. So was asbestos, so was DDT. And because of people having the ability to question the science, we no longer see these harms as something that were, quote, beneficial. And now, if someone owns the science and doesn't practice science, we could, of course, prolong very bad practices that probably will be hurting more people than actually helping them. As a perfect example of the Joe Biden administration that is now going to be firing a hero Coast Guard diver that risked his life to save residents of Florida after Hurricane Ian. The President of the United States even saw his extraordinary effort to help people. The President of the United States personally called this man, and he will be firing this man just days from now, as the U.S. military, which has very poor enlistment numbers, is still planning to fire 20,000 members of the military because they didn't comply with a procedure that the government wants them to take. A procedure which many mainline scientists are putting into question right now. But why is this absurdity happening? Why is there such discrimination? Why is a man who risked his life to save others going to be fired, prevented from helping people in the future because of an out-of-date, insane policy that absolutely has no merit in it? Well, that's because a sinister group of people control the science, and therefore science can't progress, it cannot grow, it is only hindered and destroyed for the personal benefit of a bunch of control freak and ninnies who want to hold it and wield it for themselves for their own personal use. Again, as mentioned by the UN Secretary for Global Communications, opposing viewpoints are now being pushed down in search results. Any questioning, any acts of science, not allowed. That, of course, they do not personally agree with. What's the next step in this agenda? Well, pushing more science that also very conveniently allows them to take away more of your money, more of your civil liberties away, more of your existence away from this planet. And that's exactly what they're planning to do, which I routinely talk about on LukeUncensored.com. But since today is a Sunday, I wanted to remind you about the bestpoliticalshirts.com, where you could get amazing high-quality t-shirts like the one I'm wearing right now that says, quote, I identify as hyperinflation. I can't show you the bottom half of this shirt, but you could check them out along with many other t-shirts, which are all available on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. I know it's a big, bold URL, but I stand behind it. We just gave our website a big facelift, and you could actually look for women's t-shirts, tank tops, hoodies, sweatshirts, accessories, hats, whatever you want. You could actually find now in a very easy way. If you know a shirt that you're looking for, you could easily look for them in the new search algorithm that we have established. And of course, many people said, why do you only have long sleeves? We didn't. We have many different styles of shirts that are available for you right now. And many people think it's only long sleeves. It's not. It's also women's shirts. It's also tank tops. It's also hoodies. You name it. We got all of the shirts available in all of your styles. Now we have them very easily available so you could sort through the hundreds of incredible amazing designs that are all available for you right now on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. Click the link down in the description below because it's just going to be entertaining, just going through the plethora of amazing shirts that are available for you as of right now that cannot be censored. Political speech, opposing viewpoints can be censored and is very heavily censored on big tech social media, but t-shirts cannot be censored. Trust me, there's many efforts that they try to censor these shirts. We are uncensorable, and we can express political messages to the average people just by simply wearing a shirt. It is the best way to do a lazy form of activism. Get the messaging out there, start some conversations, meet some like-minded individuals, have some people critically think about their current situation in reality, and the best way to do that is just by buying an affordable t-shirt on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. If you haven't clicked on the URL yet, what are you waiting for? Click on it right now. So, as we're making this video, it's also important to note that our current geopolitical foreign policy situation is not that good. Not that good at all, especially with the latest jaw-dropping statements made by the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who of course has the underling that he works with, Victoria Nuland, which had her hand in the Ukrainian cookie jar for a very long time. But these latest statements by Secretary Blinken are very surprising. As he just said, the explosion of the Nord Stream pipeline, the attack on Russian and German infrastructure, the ecological terrorist action is, quote, offering tremendous strategic opportunity for years to come. Yes, the Secretary of State is openly saying that this attack provides a tremendous opportunity for the United States, which, of course, will have a high price for Europe, as, of course, Europe is already dealing with a major energy crisis. That energy crisis is made that much worse with the destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline, and with the United States calling for the Nord Stream pipeline not to be originally built, as well as calling for its destruction within the last few years. And now, with its destruction, with these latest statements from the Secretary of State, highlights a clear case of who benefits from this larger ecological disaster that, of course, is going to bring some severe pain and suffering for the poorest people in Europe this winter. Now, with the pipeline being destroyed, it is expected to take many years to try to even rebuild it, if there even will be attempts to do so. This as the United States wants Europe to, quote, use less energy, all in the name of the science, while of course trying to offer some of its energy to sell to Europe. This of course creating a very difficult situation for Russia, which has only been made worse with what looks like the defeat of a major key strategic city in the Donetsk region, specifically with the reports, videos, and accounts we're getting of Russian forces leaving the key city of Lyman. Now, if you remember, a couple days ago, I was on the Timcast IRL podcast, and I said it looks like Ukraine will soon be taking the city of Lyman, which is a key strategic city, which I was heavily criticized for. And if you look at all the comments that were made there, I was called many different names. I was called crazy. I was called stupid. There's no way that this was going to happen, and now what I called for has actually happened from looking at all the sources that I usually look at. And the reason I was carefully looking at this situation is because this is a major deal. With the Ukrainians now in control of Lyman, they could push forward more into the Russian-controlled territories, but more importantly, Lyman is also a part of one of the new Russian-annexed territories that Russia claimed for themselves, which they have also promised to protect with nuclear weapons. As of course, we have been laying down the groundwork of the Russian policy here, annexing a lot of territories, saying that they will protect their territories with nuclear weapons. This as even major political allies to Russia, Chechen leaders specifically, are coming out on record recommending that Russia already use these nuclear weapons, which of course would be a severe escalation to this entire conflict, which is a larger proxy war between the East and the West. And as Russia is literally positioning themselves, sending in their nuclear bombing aircraft to the region. This is also the latest information we're getting from Israeli intelligence that released satellite images of specific Russian aircraft meant to send nuclear weapons near the Ukrainian territory. All of this as the United States is saying, well, it's not going to happen. As they continue to escalate the situation, this as already 9 member states of NATO have declared their support for a Ukrainian membership. The Ukrainian membership is, of course, something that is dependent on all members of NATO agreeing to, which as of right now in the making of this video is unlikely. But with how the situation will change inside of Ukraine, we will only see, as there is a small possibility with major escalations that this application is still up in the air. The U.S. government just passed a bill to avoid a domestic government shutdown while also agreeing to give an additional $12 billion to Ukraine. Poland has started to give out anti-radiation tablets, while Putin has been declaring that victory will be his, while of course ranting and raving about the use of nuclear weapons. He also went on to call Western elites, quote, openly satanic, while of course rejecting moral and religious traditions, while, quote, offering children sex change operations. So yeah, there's that. And in this conflict, there's going to be no winners. The escalation of this conflict from both sides, to me, is absolutely idiotic. I'm no fan of any government. I'm no fan of any politician. And no matter what they say, unless they're de-escalating the situation, unless they're trying to go to the negotiations tables, unless they're trying to, of course, stop this war, I don't want to hear any of it. And if a politician wants to fight a war, let them fight the war themselves. Just like the old days. Kings used to fight kings. You believe in an idea, you want to battle somebody? Do it on your own. Stop telling poor people to do your own fighting for you. And truly, this is a situation that is chaotic, and that is absolutely stupid in my opinion. If you agree with that particular opinion, share this video with your friends and family members. It is more imperative than ever, especially with the algorithm changes being made here on YouTube. If you disagreed with anything, please let me know why. I love constructive criticism. I love being able to have the opportunity to hear an opinion or perspective that I wouldn't naturally hear myself. The mind works best when it's open. I'm doing my best to keep it as open as I can here, as honest as I can here. And if you agreed with it, again, copying that URL, sending it to your friend means the world to us. Because you do that, we are still here. I wouldn't be here for over 16 plus years if it wasn't for you guys actively engaging in this independent, small mom and pop shop media organization. I'm only here because of you, and this is why I love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on wearechange.org.